The land of Israel. To whom does it belong? Much of this covers the understanding of the two land covenants. Few topics in Scripture are as passionately debated as the ownership of the land of Israel. Yet the Bible speaks clearly and repeatedly about the divine origin and enduring nature of Israel's land promises. What many do not realize is that there are two distinct covenants in the Torah concerning the land, the Abrahamic Covenant and the Mosaic Land or Canaan Covenant. These two covenants established both the title and the conditions of possession for Israel's inheritance. Understanding the difference between these two covenants removes confusion and reveals the prophetic significance behind Israel's ancient exile, modern regathering, and future spiritual restoration. Before discussing Israel's inheritance, however, Scripture makes one thing clear: who the land truly belongs to first. That is God alone. Leviticus 25:23 clearly says, "The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine." The land does not belong to any empire, government, or ethnicity by natural right. God alone is the owner. He himself chose to give that land to a specific people for a specific purpose, which is Abraham's seed according to Genesis 15:18, which states, "To your seed I have given this land." This also includes Genesis 17:19 that says, "But my covenant I will establish with Isaac." This means that the land of Israel was given to Abraham, confirmed through Isaac, not Ishmael, and passed through Jacob to the 12 tribes of Israel. Next, we will unpack the Abrahamic Covenant and the title of the Eternal Land Covenant. Around 2000 BC, God made an unconditional covenant with Abraham written in Genesis verses 12, 1-7, 15:18, and 17:7-8. In it, the Lord promised Abraham and his descendants a specific tract of land forever. According to Genesis 17:8, "The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God." This covenant was not temporary, conditional, or symbolic. It was sealed by God himself. The land was not given because of Israel's righteousness either. It was given solely because of God's sovereign promise and purpose, written in Deuteronomy 9:4-6. Therefore, the Jews hold the eternal title deed to the land, regardless of history, politics, or public opinion. It's also important to understand that no other country in the world has such a deed. Next, we will analyze the Mosaic Land Covenant and the conditions for possession and enjoyment. Approximately 750 years later, in the days of Moses, God established the Mosaic Land Covenant, also called the Canaan Covenant, recorded in Deuteronomy chapters 28-30. This covenant did not deal with ownership since it was unconditional, but the possession and use of the land was conditional. A simple illustration can make this clearer. A parent purchases a house and places the title in their son's name. However, rules are set for using the house. If the son disobeys, destroys the property, or allows evil into the house, the privileges can be removed, and the son is kicked out of the house. However, the son's name stays on the title of the house. Likewise, the Abrahamic Covenant gave Israel the eternal title to the land. The Mosaic Covenant defined conditions for enjoying the land. When Israel obeyed God, they were blessed, written in Deuteronomy 28:1-14. When they rebelled, they were warned that the result would be a temporary loss of possession, or exile, written in Deuteronomy 28:36-37. Worldwide dispersion and persecution, shown in Deuteronomy 28:64-67, yet never the loss of the title to the land. The covenant concludes with God's promise of final restoration. "The Lord will gather you again from all the nations and bring you into the land, which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it." Located in Deuteronomy 30 verse 3-5. This is precisely what history has witnessed. After nearly 1,900 years of global dispersion, the Jewish people have returned to their homeland, rebuilt their nation, revived their ancient language, and restored the land from desolation to flourishing productivity. The fulfillment of Deuteronomy 30 is certainly happening in our day. Let's next understand the Arab Covenant, a different promise. As descendants of Abraham through Ishmael, the Arab peoples also received a divine promise, but not Israel's land covenant. According to Genesis 17:20, God will greatly multiply Ishmael's descendants. God fulfilled this abundantly. Today, there are 21 Arab nations covering over 5 million square miles, while Israel consists of only 8,000 square miles. The Arab world has been blessed with a vast population and territory and with many riches. Israel's inheritance, though much smaller, is divinely appointed and unique. Next, we will answer the question of the Palestinians. Historically, no sovereign Palestinian state has ever existed. The land of Israel was never the capital of any Arab nation, and Jerusalem was never mentioned in the Quran. From 70 AD to 1948, the region was a territory ruled by foreign empires. The term Palestine was imposed by Rome to erase Jewish identity after the Bar Kokhba revolt in 132 to 135 AD. Furthermore, the state of Jordan is already majority Palestinian and was carved out of lands originally allocated for the Jewish homeland in the 1917 Balfour Declaration. The notion that Israel is withholding land belonging to others is historically and biblically inaccurate. Next, we will analyze why the nations resist Israel, but God will prevail. The prophets declare that in the last days the nations will rage against Israel's land restoration. According to Zechariah 12:3, all nations will gather against Jerusalem, but the Lord will defend Jerusalem. Written in Zechariah 12:8, Israel is called to stand firm, even under global pressure, for God himself defends the inheritance he gave in Amos 9:14-15, which claims, "I will plant them on their land, and they will never again be uprooted." Furthermore, there is no place in the New Testament that says the land covenant with Israel is canceled, revoked, or transferred to another people. In fact, every time the New Testament speaks about God's promises to Israel, it emphasizes that the promises still stand. Paul explicitly says the covenants still belong to Israel. According to Romans 9:4, Paul speaks of the Jewish people. Who are Israelites to whom pertain the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law, the temple worship and the promises? Paul is writing decades after Yeshua's resurrection, and he says the covenants still belong to Israel. He does not say used to belong. He says pertain as an ongoing possession. In our conclusion, we will understand how the land of Israel is the Lord's gift. The Bible leaves no ambiguity. The title to the land of Israel belongs eternally to the Jewish people through the Abrahamic Covenant. The right of possession and enjoyment is governed by faithfulness under the Mosaic Covenant. In other words, the possession of the land was conditional under Moses, but the ownership of the land is eternal and unconditional under Abraham. The modern return of Israel is the literal fulfillment of the ancient land covenant promise. The final prophetic step is the spiritual awakening of Israel to her Messiah. The land is not Israel's because of politics, negotiation, or war. It is Israel's because God said so and that he is the owner of it and can give it to anyone he pleases. To say otherwise makes God a liar. This is something we never want to do.